Welcome to The Cauldron, a podcast hosted by Ed Bolden Greer, the creator of Ravens Vail. In each episode, Ed will have free-flowing conversations about horror, life, culture, and personal growth. Expect to hear from storytellers, authors, horror experts, life gurus, thought leaders, and influencers. The Cauldron is a place where concoctions of a lot of ideas are brewed down to potions that are sometimes important and useful, sometimes eccentric and bizarre, but always just what you need. The Cauldron podcast may contain explicit language and thematic elements not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hey there, family. Welcome back to another captivating episode of the Ravens Vail Cauldron. I'm your host, Ed Bolden Greer, and this here is my co-host, Jacob Garner, a.k.a. Freddy Cat.
Hello, everyone.
Today, we continue our deep dive into the fascinating world of extraterrestrial and unidentified aerial phenomena. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, we're but a tiny speck, and it's this humbling realization that fuels our curiosity. Are we alone in the universe? Or is there other intelligent life out there, perhaps looking up at the night sky and wondering the same thing? Today, we'll explore more about this mysterious phenomena that has captured our collective imaginations. From the enigmatic lights dancing in the night sky to the unexplained objects defying our understanding of physics, we'll delve into the unknown. Are they elaborate hoaxes, misunderstood natural occurrences, or could they indeed be visitors from worlds beyond ours? So, Jacob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Had a delicious lunch. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You were telling me a story the other day about waking up in the middle of the night and being scared by a... Well, why don't you just remind me how you got up to get your glass of water, Jacob?
Oh, God. So I'm seeing this new guy. He's very, very, very sweet. But just like a physical description of him, because it'll be relevant, he's significantly taller than me by like 4 or 5 inches, I would say.
So he's 5'9", 5'10"?
Yeah, shut up. And he's a little bit on the leaner side. So he's kind of got
he's gangly.
Gangly, yeah. But in the
Tall
cutest
and
way
skinny.
possible, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, he had stayed the night with me, and I sleep on the side of the bed that faces the door to my bedroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had just experienced a pretty terrifying nightmare of my other partner basically mangling their body from a botched high dive springboard attempt.
Like at a pool?
Yeah. And their body was reduced to like a shambling mess.
Like kind of like a zombie
But
of thing.
way more gnarled, and it was terrifying. It was a scary nightmare. Well, he had just recently gotten out of the bed to...
Wait, hold on. The person that was spending the night with you, the new guy.
Yeah. He had just gotten out of the bed to go run to the bathroom in the guest bathroom, right? And he thought he was being quiet, but he made just enough noise that it woke me up, right? So my eyes open, and the bedroom door opens too, and I see this shambling figure in a robe, right, coming through the door, and I immediately sit up and,
No, how did you really go?
I was like, like it was like a really scared thing. And then he was like, Jacob, are you all right? I'm like, heart's pounding out of my chest. I'm like, holy shit, you scared me so bad. Well, I immediately realized I needed to get something to drink. And he had already crawled into bed next to me. This is like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, I'm going to go
here comes the good part.
I was like, I'm going to go get a glass of water real quick. And I get to the bedroom door to start walking down the hallway to the kitchen, and it's pitch dark. And I got really, really scared that this like shambling figure was going to start coming out of the darkness towards me or something like that. So I freeze. And the guy sat up. He's like, you all right? I said, bit of a dumb question. Can you come with me to go to the kitchen, please, to get a glass of water? I'm really freaked out right now. And he had already gotten cozy underneath the covers, and he was like, Yeah, man, totally. So he gets next to me, and I'm still just standing there. He's like, "Come on, big guy," and he holds
Big
my.
guy.
I know. He holds my hand as we walk the 7 feet to my kitchen. He stands there and leans against the counter, waits for me to finish my glass of water, and then holds my hand as we walk back to the bedroom.
Oh, so cute.
Well, it was very comforting, but also kind of humiliating, but I appreciated it.
You're used to being humiliated.
God, I was so scared, man. You have no idea.
Oh my gosh. Yesterday was the deadline to file your taxes. Jacob, did you actually get your taxes filed?
Yeah. I always, every year, I use one of the big box stores, like a corporation that files them for me. And they just take a little bit off the top. I pay for my identity protection. I'll be honest with you, I never even really pay attention to how much I get back because I just have a direct deposit set up for it.
You might want to look this year because they may have taken some out.
Oh, shit, for real?
Yeah. Jared and I had to pay $1,500 extra that we've never had to pay before.
Damn.
They couldn't really tell us why, except the new tax laws went into effect. So.
Oh, wow. Okay, maybe I need to pay attention, but they're filed, so I don't really care.
Well, as long as they're filed. It looks like Governor Bill Lee's school voucher program may be in trouble.
For real?
Yeah. The Tennessee Journal yesterday reported that the voucher bill was dead.
Thank God.
It is going before the Finance Committee today, and it looks like it's going to fail. If it fails in the Finance Subcommittee, it's likely to be sent back to the clerk's desk, and then it'll be required to go through the committee process again, all but guaranteeing that it won't pass this legislative season.
Oh, cool. I'm all right with that. It seems like it's pretty unpopular on both sides.
From our public schools to parents to just about everybody's against it.
Yeah.
So, well, family, join us next week as we end this season of the Ravens Vail Cauldron. Jacob and I will be discussing the past season and what you can expect from the upcoming season. It's going to be laden with a lot of dad jokes. Really super bad dad jokes.
My favorite.
So mark your calendars and join us next week as we wind down the season with some unusual topics and maybe a few drop-in guests.
That'll be fun.
Are you ready for the Would You Rather questions?
You know it, man. Come on.
Okay, I got a good one for you today.
Let's hear it.
You're probably going to have to think about this one just a little deeper than what it appears on the surface.
Did it.
Would you rather have a spouse who always forgets your birthday but is otherwise very attentive, or a spouse who never forgets your birthday but is generally forgetful about other things?
No, this is pretty easy for me, actually. I think I will just say a spouse that forgets my birthday because, I know our listeners don't know, but you know me. Me and Zach have never really cared about our birthdays, so...
Yeah, I think the problem with that is that we're never going to let you forget your birthday.
I know, right?
And so it was a little unfair to ask this question because we're also not going to let your spouse forget about your birthday either.
Yeah, right. All right. Okay, cool. I've got a would you rather question for you. You ready?
Okay.
Would you rather have a spouse who is your best friend,
okay,
but has different hobbies and interests, okay?
Okay.
Or a spouse who shares all of your hobbies and interests, but isn't your best friend?
I'm going to go with the first one because that's kind of the situation I'm in now. Jared and I are best friends. We definitely don't have the same interests and hobbies, but we do participate in each other's hobbies and interests.
Yeah.
We also do share some. We both like playing D&D.
Yeah.
We like longboarding, stuff like that. But I have no interest in playing musical instruments. I'm a singer, but I'm not a musician.
Yeah.
In that sense, and he's kind of obsessed with it. So
yeah. Also, you've bought him every string instrument under the sun.
I like him playing those instruments.
Dude, real quick before we get into the episode, because I know you're really big into haunts and stuff, haunted attractions. Have you been reading about all this crap going on with McCamey Manor?
Oh, yeah.
Well, can you break it down for me?
Well, I know it's not your favorite subject.
Hell no.
Well, McCamey Manor is a well-known haunted attraction that was founded in San Diego by a super interesting haunt creator, Russ McCamey.
Yeah.
It's known for its intense tactics of, just terrifying guests.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the manor recently filed a 32-page lawsuit in late March against Tennessee's Attorney General over their investigation into the attraction's practices. In the lawsuit, McCamey claims that the Tennessee Attorney General's office requested information in the investigation and that there was recent inspections of his property by another state agency, and that those two acts violated his First, Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendment rights. He's seeking a court order to ensure he won't have to testify in the state's investigation, obviously.
Yeah.
And probably squelch the investigation. The investigation into McCamey Manor's operations began following the release of the 2023 Hulu documentary, in which participants that had gone through the haunt claimed that there were no way to stop the tour, among many other questionable practices. The documentary was entitled Monster Inside, America's Most Extreme Haunted House. It featured 5 people who had previously been guests of the manor, and it included footage of the tour that McCamey himself posted online.
Okay.
The manor, located just south of Nashville in Summertown, has been in the national spotlight for some time. Thousands of people signed a petition in 2019 to shut it down, with deputies having to be called to the property several times in the past. The manor is known for its extreme scare tactics, which include dragging people by chains, locking them into confined spaces where water is pouring in, things like that.
Yikes.
Okay. McCamey has been quoted supposedly as saying, "We're known for our no quitting and no safe wording."
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which seems bad on the surface.
Yeah.
The outcome of the lawsuit and McCamey Manor's future kind of remains really murky and uncertain. As the investigation continues, the haunted house's practices and the legality of its operation in general is going to be under close scrutiny. And although I wish McCamey Manor would implement safe wording, I believe that this is extreme governmental overreach, and I really hope he wins this whole thing.
I mean, you and I kind of talked about this off air, but I mean, to play, devil's advocate in favor of McCamey, there's no way anybody that goes to this thing can claim ignorance, like they didn't know what was going to happen.
Right. One of the claims that the Attorney General's office has is that even though no one has ever sued for this, they sign an intense contract.
Yeah, it's
which
huge.
Explicitly lays out things that could happen. Like you could get wet, you could have things thrown at you, you could be dragged, you won't be extremely injured, but any injury that happens is your responsibility. Okay, all of that's laid out in the contract, and people know what they're getting into when they go into this place.
That's exactly right.
This isn't one of those local Halloween haunted attractions that's just open during the Halloween season, where you get to cluck like a chicken and they'll take you out.
Yeah.
I wish, like I said, they had safe wording.
Yeah.
So that if you did something, if you said whatever the safe word was, a cast member would immediately take you out. In this way, I do believe that there's things that could happen that cause you not to be able to continue.
Yeah.
And by having that safe word, you could be escorted out safely.
Well, I feel like, too, and I've done my own little bit of research, just more of a curiosity on McCamey Manor. I think the advertisement of there is no safe word, there is no quitting, is just part of the allure. I really believe, from what I've seen and heard, that McCamey does respect.
That's what I understand, too, that people
out.
have been able to bail out of it. And I do think that it's more of an advertising scare, but I've heard of people who have been able to bail out of it.
Yeah. Now, family? The information presented in this episode is based on reports from eyewitnesses. While Ed and I have made every effort to remain neutral and present the facts as they are reported, we acknowledge that these phenomena are subject to interpretation and can be influenced by a variety of factors, including personal beliefs and experiences. Please understand that we both firmly believe that there is a high probability of extraterrestrial life beyond our planet.
Yep.
We base this belief on scientific discoveries, the vastness of the universe, the plethora of historical references, and the potential for other civilizations to evolve elsewhere. We do not claim to have definitive answers or explanations for these phenomena. Our goal is to facilitate open and respectful discussion on these topics. We encourage listeners to approach this information with an open mind and to form their own opinions based on the evidence presented. Please note that while we strive for accuracy, we cannot guarantee the veracity of the eyewitness reports, and we recommend further research and critical thinking for a comprehensive understanding of these complex and intriguing occurrences.
So, Jacob, I have something a little different today.
Okay.
Rather than my usual story, and I love telling those stories.
I love them too, yeah.
I have a story from one of our listeners. We got an email from Brandon, who only wants us to use his first name.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read the email. Hello, Ed and Jacob. My name is Brandon. I started listening to the Ravens Vail podcast, and then I found out about this podcast. I've been a fan since the first episode. I love what you guys do, and I love that you all are in Knoxville. I went to school in Knoxville, but grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Currently, I live in Loveland, just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm excited that Ravens Vail will be at CreepyCon, and I plan to come to Knoxville to see friends and attend the con.
Hell yeah.
I hope I will get to meet all of you. In your last episode, you said your next episode was going to be about aliens and UFOs, and I thought you might want a story from a fan. I've written this twice now, trying to get it to where I feel like it tells the whole story. Please use my first name so that I can stay somewhat anonymous. I don't want to have to deal with the skeptics telling me I'm crazy when I know I'm not. I have a story I would like to share about an experience I had when I was 26 and going to UTK. I've only told this to a few people because honestly, no one has ever believed me. I was on a road trip from Knoxville to Baton Rouge for Thanksgiving when something weird happened to me. It was around 4 a.m. and I had gotten off I-59 to find somewhere to pee. I was also tired, so I knew getting some fresh air would do me good. I drove about 10 miles down a country road without finding anything that was open before I decided to pull over on a dirt road. It was a pretty warm night for the end of November. The night sky was clear, and I remember thinking how quiet and peaceful it was. I got out of the car and peed. I was taking in a few minutes of fresh air before getting back on the road when I felt rather strange. I saw a really bright flash of light that I assumed was headlights, and then all I remember was moments of lucidness and feeling paralyzed. I can recall vivid flashes of the environment that I could only describe as alien. I had never seen anything like it. I felt peaceful, but I also felt a tad bit panicked. There were three beings, which is the best explanation I have, surrounding the thing that I was laying on. The brief glimpses of their face were blurred through my tears. They looked human as far as their physical features, but their faces and necks were somehow different. I had heard about alien abductions, probing, and medical exams, and impregnations, and although I had always believed that we couldn't be the only beings in all of creation, I had never taken any of that kind of stuff seriously. A tube of some kind was forced down my throat, and then I felt one of the beings begin to probe me. One of the beings was taking some samples or readings with a device that looked like a laser pointer pen attached to something the size of a cell phone. The third one adjusted something above the table, and slowly I lost sight and hearing. I could still feel their instruments against my skin. I was terrified, but there was nothing I could do. I was entirely at their mercy. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. I found myself lying in a field. My car was still running about 200 yards away. I checked the time, Less than an hour had passed since I'd pulled over. I was left in a state of disbelief and bewilderment. I had been abducted, examined, and then released as if nothing had happened. Unexplainably, I wasn't afraid or concerned at all. I used to have a lot of health issues, especially stomach problems, mild obesity, ADHD, and intense anxiety. A few months after the encounter, I felt better than I ever had felt. I was more alert and could focus. I lost weight, got in shape, and my anxiety vanished. I haven't been sick at all since that night, even with the pandemic. I'm just a fairly average person, and I've tried to talk myself out of it multiple times, but honestly, I know I didn't imagine it. What I experienced that night was real. I've never had anything like this happen to me before or since. I can testify that aliens are real. Thanks for listening to my story. I know it might sound strange and unsettling. I hope that you can use it, and I hope that it helps someone else who has had a similar experience. I want you to know how grateful I am to have someone who will listen without judgment. Like I said earlier, I haven't really talked about this much, and it was good to get it out of my head. I can't wait for your next episode, and I hope to meet you all at CreepyCon. Keep up the excellent work, Brandon. So, Jacob, how do you feel about that?
Brandon, I got to say, thank you so much for writing in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
and thank you for trusting us to share your story.
Yeah, because that's got to be make you feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
To putting yourself out there, and we will respect your anonymity. But Brandon, I mean,
wow,
that account is just so intensely interesting.
Yeah.
I think you guys know me. I love extraterrestrial stories, abduction stories from aliens and whatnot. And there's so many similarities between Brandon's account and what I have read and seen and heard and everything like that. I guess I want to talk to one aspect of it that may make people a little uncomfortable, but there's a legitimate reason behind it, I think. So you always hear these alien beings probing, right? Like, why? Why is it always anal probing? Da-da-da-da-da. Well, Ed and I both are in some way linked to the medical community, Dr. Bolden way more than I, right? And we understand that as human beings, we have very interesting bacteria biomes that exist in our colons and in our stomach.
Yep.
I wonder if because of the complexity of that beings that possibly don't have this are really interested in how we are able to maintain these biomes, how they benefit us, because the biomes for bacteria in our body are inexplicably linked to our health.
Absolutely. We're learning more and more every day about our gut health and how it affects our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health. I think it's just amazing. And I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I don't think it's that they lack it. I think that they may be looking at that area of our lives in order to help us.
Yeah, because there are a bunch of other instances I've read and seen where people get abducted and maybe they had like stage 2 colon cancer or something like that. And then when they come back, poof, vanished, gone, healthy. So, Brandon, I love this. Listeners, I don't care what the topic is. If you have any sort of paranormal, supernatural experience, write in, please.
And let us know about them. We love hearing from you.
And make sure that if you do want us to share the story, you write that in the email. If not, we'll just talk about it off air because I enjoy that stuff.
Or we'll talk about it so that it's just a topic, not an email from you.
Yeah, but Brandon, thank you so much. I love that.
Thank you, Brandon.
Can't wait to meet you at CreepyCon.
Yep, let us know. We'll have a special Ravens Vail Cauldron gift for you.
Yeah.
So, Jacob, again, I don't think I really have to ask this question, but did you do your homework?
Oh, come on, man. You know I did.
I love you, Jacob.
So I wanted to start my information in this episode similar to the last one with a quote from the late, great Carl Sagan.
You love him, don't you?
Oh, man. I love him.
Great.
Carl Sagan had a very pertinent quote that's relevant to the information that we're about to give. And it was, quote, "The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence," end quote.
I love that.
I do too.
I absolutely love that.
But luckily for our listeners and you, I've compiled a lot of evidence. So. I think it would be important for us to touch on where the interest in extraterrestrial life coming to Earth really kind of kicked off in the modern era.
Mm-hmm.
In the previous episode, we talked about historical context, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ancient history. But when did it all start here in the modern era?
Yep.
And I think that it goes without saying that our first toe dipping into the pool of the potential aspect of aliens coming to Earth really was born from Sunday, October the 30th in 1938. I'm sure everybody's heard of this, but it was when the Columbia Broadcast System, or CBS radio network, broadcasted a telling of the story of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. So this was a program that started actually with a disclaimer at the beginning saying, hey, this is a work of fiction. But then it transformed into more of kind of like the early version of found footage that we have now in movies. But radio shows were extremely popular. Movie theaters had not picked up steam at this point. So this was a simulated fictional broadcast of news bulletins reporting on a Martian invasion of Earth. And,
right. If you tuned in late.
Yeah, and you missed that disclaimer.
Like in TV, they could run a banner across the bottom saying, this is fictitious or whatever. But when you're on radio, if you tune in late, this sounds like a real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a news broadcast.
Exactly. And CBS was known for that, right? So let's say you get home late, you didn't realize that this was a fake thing. It just sounds like a live, updated
breaking news.
Exactly. Oh, and that phrase was used a lot, too, during the program. And it ended around 9 p.m., so it lasted for about an hour, right?
Dude, people would have been terrified.
I would have been terrified, man. Imagine if I was getting in my car, turning on NPR or something like that, and then it sounds like, by the way, alien beings have landed in New York.
Aliens are real.
Yeah.
They've shown up in New York.
They just blew up a Statue of Liberty or something crazy,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had any
Sounds
idea.
like a good movie theme.
I know, right? Basically, there were a lot of reports of mass panic and hysteria. Now, some of it has been a little overblown. Back then, news stations were still a little sensationalist in the way that they did it. But I think, speaking just as the common person tuning into this and missing the disclaimer, they really thought it was actually occurring, right?
Right.
And I kind of did a little bit of research into why this would have happened outside of just being fooled and why were people scared. You also have to understand the timing and the context of when this was released in 1938. The broadcast was aired at a time of heightened tensions in Europe due to the looming threat of World War II that was about to erupt.
Right.
So people were already anxious about the possibility of a war, but combined with the realistic portrayal of an alien invasion, it tapped perfectly into this anxiety that we all had, right? And like you were saying too, many of the listeners tuned in after the broadcast had already started and missed the disclaimer at the beginning, which stated that it was actually a work of fiction. So that lack of context contributed to confusion and panic. People were calling each other, people were crowding around, and there were instances where people were saying, hey, turn on CBS right now. Listen to what's going on. This is crazy, right? But I say all that to say this. This was probably the first time that a majority of Americans really thought for the first time that there's a possibility of aliens coming to our planet, right?
I mean, it started a slew of fiction work that had not been on. I mean, movies like a little later on, you had The Day the Earth Stood Still, Invasion of the Astro Monsters in 1965, War of the Worlds. In 1953. The Day the Earth Stood Still was in 51. And just, it goes on and on. Earth versus the Flying Saucer was extremely popular, and it came out in 1956. So it just started a slew of UFO and alien invasion obsessions.
And I think for a lot of Americans that hadn't really even heard or thought about this, after this broadcast, even after they understood that it was a fiction, right? A work of fiction. Even though there were a lot of Americans that understood after the fallout of this settled that for the first time, they probably stood outside of their house at night looked up at the stars and wondered, what if?
Well, not only what if, but there's always been conspiracy theorists. So when they were told that this was just a work of fiction, I'm sure they thought it was a cover-up by the government.
Yeah, I'm sure. So why do some people believe that the possibility of alien life, advanced alien life, could exist in the universe? So I'm going to actually use some real science to back up why I believe it. So there's a bunch of exoplanets that we now know exist in the universe that kind of mirror...
Hey, can you define exoplanets for the listeners?
Yeah, of course. So an exoplanet is basically just planets orbiting stars outside of our solar system. Okay. There is a really powerful telescope called the Kepler Space Telescope. I mean, there's some other examples of some other deep space telescopes. The most famous that most people are probably familiar with is like the Hubble Deep Space Telescope. But we just finished a massive one called the James Webb Telescope.
Yep.
This thing is so powerful that it's actually going to help us understand the origins of like the Big Bang and everything too. So as these telescopes get more and more advanced, we're getting further and further into our line of sight of these exoplanets.
Right.
And again, to put it in layman's terms, an exoplanet is kind of like a planet that we've yet to conclusively identify intelligent alien life forms on it, but they have all of the conditions that we have here on Earth.
They have all the conditions that we know could support life.
Exactly, for carbon-based life forms.
Carbon-based.
Which it seems like carbon is the bedrock for what you need to have complex life, right? Yeah. So one famous example of an exoplanet that has garnered a lot of attention for the alien community, right, as a potential candidate for hosting life, and it's got a super fun name depending on what you consider fun, but it's called Proxima Centauri b. Okay, this exoplanet orbits Proxima Centauri. It's the closest star to the sun, our sun here in our solar system, at a distance of about 4.24 light years from Earth. That's very far, because for people who don't understand what a light year is, it's not particularly a speed like a lot of people think when you say I'm going at light speed. A light year is the amount of distance traveled while going the speed of light, which is a astronomical amount of distance, okay? We have not even begun to scratch the surface on getting close to that type of technology, but a lot of us that believe in aliens believe that other civilizations and advanced life forms probably have.
Yeah, essentially a light year it's you moving at the velocity of about 300,000 kilometers each second.
God, it's just unbelievable. You and I would be turned into applesauce.
Yeah.
If we tried to travel at that speed, right? So Proxima Centauri b has a very rocky composition to it. It's very similar in its rocky composition to here on Earth. And why this is important is because they provide solid surfaces where complex chemistry and biological processes can occur. Another huge aspect of this planet is that it actually has an atmosphere. Now, what kind of atmosphere that is, we can only estimate of its composition, but due to the way that the readings come back to us through our light and through these radio waves, these radioactive waves that it sends back, we do know that it has an atmosphere of some sort that's very similar to ours, which is also very important for protecting any potential life on that planet from experiencing really dangerous levels of radiation coming from its star. But if we're trying to draw similarities and say, how is that possible? We have examples of these organisms called extremophiles, okay? Extremophiles are organisms that thrive in extreme environments previously thought to be completely uninhabitable. And this has definitely expanded our understanding of where life can exist on Earth or potentially someplace else in the universe. To give you guys a rough idea of the type of environments that extremophiles can live and thrive in: deep sea hydrothermal vents, very acidic hot springs, subglacial lakes, and areas with little to no oxygen or extreme amounts of radiation. On paper, before we understood what extremophiles were, if you looked at some of these environments, you would say this is a barren landscape. Nothing could possibly survive here.
Or nothing could live or grow here.
Exactly. But they find a way. And even though the examples of extremophiles here on Earth, they seem very, basic, primordial even, given enough time, you could make an argument.
Well, I don't know. There's some deep water exophiles.
Oh, yeah.
that are pretty complex. They look very bizarre. They look alien.
God. Yeah.
But they're pretty complex.
Yeah, exactly. If you looked back at our history as organisms, right? Anybody looking at the primordial soup that we all came from would say, well, these things are never going to develop into anything. And now look at what human beings have been capable of, right? There's a couple of moons that surround Jupiter named like Europa or Saturn's moon.
It used to be a gay bar in Knoxville called the Europa. There were some very strange, unusual people there.
I'm sure. These moons around Jupiter or Saturn, for example, have conditions where this could be conducive to life despite being really harsh by our human standards.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just basically trying to make the argument that life is possible outside of our solar system. Now, what does it look like and what will it develop into? Who knows? But on a cosmic scale of time, I'm not going to put any restrictions on some of these really basic organisms to not develop and evolve into an advanced civilization. So all I'm saying is that there's supporting evidence that they could, okay? I want to talk about some of the more famous terms that some people I'm going to talk about some terms that are pretty famous that some people probably have already heard of as opposed to exoplanets or extremophiles, okay? UFOs, or what we now in the alien community call UAPs, unexplained aerial phenomenon. There are so many of these accounts, eyewitness testimony, even videos. I'll show you a very famous video later on in this episode. But UFOs, UAPs, whatever you feel like calling them, that term's pretty interchangeable. They have been detected, observed, even recorded as occurring here on Earth that really feed into the general zeitgeist that there is something beyond our human capabilities of technology. And while some of them have been reasonably explained, like, oh, it was the heat signature off of an aircraft, or it was the shadow of an aircraft following something through trickery of light and just the way our physics work, a lot of them still remain very unexplained, which I find very, very fun as being evidence that there's something else going on. I'm going to talk about a couple of very significant occurrences that our own government participated in, okay? And actually, this actually hits a little bit closer to home for you and I, Ed. So in June 2021, in the middle of the pandemic, that was like everybody's main focus at the time in June 2021. How are we going to navigate it, et cetera, et cetera. There was a congressional hearing that took place in Washington where the Navy and a lot of representatives and chairpeople of our military were hauled before Congress to release classified information into the public arena that then our Congress people that we had elected could then poke and ask questions. There were a couple instances of very closed-door sessions that the public was not made privy to. I can only imagine what they talked about. But love him or hate him, Tim Burchett, our congressperson here from Tennessee, was the head chairperson for this committee, which I find very, very interesting. So in June 2021, the Office of the Director of
Let's go back. Tim Burchett, not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor.
Not supporters.
Not supporters of him. But I do enjoy this aspect of his career, okay? So in June 2021, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, released a highly anticipated preliminary report on UAP sightings to the U.S. Congress. This report was mandated by the Intelligence Authorization Act for the fiscal year 2021, which required U.S. intelligence agencies to submit an unclassified report on UAPs within 180 days. The unclassified report provided an overview of UAP sightings reported by U.S. military personnel and the intelligence agencies. It included an analysis of 144 reported UAP incidents, most of which lacked sufficient information to determine their origins, but the report did not confirm or deny the existence of extraterrestrial life. It also did not provide definitive explanations for the observed phenomena, citing a lack of data. Basically, they said we're unsure, but here's what we saw, here's what we found. Okay.
Just interestingly, to piggyback off of that, the Pentagon's UFO report that was released on my birthday, March 8th, 2024, outlined that there had been no sightings and that the U.S. government's historical record of unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, the report said there was no evidence that any government investigations or academic research or official review panels had ever confirmed the existence of UAPs, which
I feel like they're covering themselves.
Well, I think they're backtracking. I will go on to say that there, we had our solar eclipse recently, and there was a UFO sighting in Arlington, Texas.
Yes. No. I'm so glad you brought that up because I actually did had that land on my radar, and there were multiple eyewitness accounts. There's some interesting footage and aerial photographs that exist of it. Again, I'm neither confirming or denying that it definitely was alien life, but come on.
There was another one that same time in California in Sequoia Park.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, okay. I know what I'm doing tonight. I'm really excited about that. One thing that's an important takeaway from this report in June 2021 was that if looking at it from surface value, what these aircraft were purported to do, it completely shatters our conventional understanding of aerospace and just typical physics that exist.
Absolutely.
For the aircraft that we have.
It's just not possible by the current laws of physics that we know.
Exactly. But we observed it. So we knew it happened, right? And just because it's beyond our understanding doesn't mean it's beyond the understanding of some other right?
Other species.
So there is, I want to go back in time before I talk about the most famous UAP that we have footage of. But have you heard of the Randall Sham Force incident in the UK?
I'm not bringing that information to my forememory, but I do recall. Once you start talking about it, it'll probably bring it back up. But I'm pretty sure I've seen and read things about it.
Gotcha. So I know a lot of listeners may have thought I was immediately going to talk about the Roswell incident in 1947 or, any of the Area 51 sightings that we have, right? But I wanted to talk about maybe this lesser known account because it's also been kind of described as the UK's Roswell incident. Okay. The Randall Sham Force incident occurred over a series of nights in December 1980 near one of the Royal Air Force's base, Woodbridge. It's based in Suffolk, England, and I'm going to go over some of the documented, concrete, signed as being legitimate in the telling accounts, okay? So the initial sighting occurred on December 26th, the day after Christmas in 1980, okay? The U.S. Air Force personnel stationed in the UK's Royal Air Force Base reported seeing strange lights in the nearby Rendlesham Forest. It was initially dismissed as a possibly downed aircraft or helicopter. So they sent the boys out there to go investigate it. There was a close encounter that was reported on December 27th. That following night, Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt led a team of personnel into the forest to investigate the lights.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
Yes, they reported encountering a metallic craft emitting colored lights and moving erratically through the trees. The object reportedly left physical traces, including marks on the ground, damage to nearby vegetation, tree limbs being broken off, trees being uprooted and thrown around.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I find super, super cool. There were audio recordings during this time. Okay. Lieutenant Colonel Hall recorded his observations and reactions to what he was seeing on a handheld tape recorder. These audio recordings captured the events as they unfolded, including descriptions of the lights, the team's reactions to the encounters, the general feeling of mystery and anxiety that they had. These obviously are a key piece of evidence for a lot of people. I've listened to these recordings, right? I don't know how they got leaked, but I think that they had a similar declassification act that got passed in the UK where this stuff got released. And when I listened to it, outside of the great accent that the guy has, the general fear, confusion. This guy is a hardened military man, right? He's probably seen some stuff in his day. There was just this weird, it gives me goosebumps listening to it every time because he's just as confused as I would have been looking at this craft, right? Interestingly enough, the Randall Sham Force incident attracted the attention of both the British and the U.S. government, obviously. And while the British Ministry of Defense initially downplayed the incident, the U.S. Air Force conducted its own investigation. And during these declassification events that took place here in the U.S., both governments took the incident very seriously and investigated it to varying degrees. But it wasn't like, oh, yeah, we found a downed helicopter or somebody had a toy airplane or something like that.
Yeah, they never really indicated what they found.
But they took it very seriously.
Yeah.
The numerous personnel that were there and present during the Randall Sham Force incident have come forward to share their accounts of the events. Their testimonies describe very similar things: strange lights, colored lights, beeping, flashing, all this other stuff. This metal object was kind of described as like a tube or an upside down metallic acorn of sorts, or a top. And they had a lot of unusual phenomenon such as radio interference and electronic malfunctions. These audio recordings that got released from HALT, right? It gets really staticky, fuzzy, especially as he gets closer to the object, kind of like it was blocking out whatever electronic devices that they were using. There were reports that their cars wouldn't start. There were reports that individual Geiger counters and stuff people were using to try to detect the radiation showed spikes and then drops and then spikes again, especially as the thing started to hum loudly. That's when they noticed, okay, something's going on. It's sending out some sort of electromagnetic field. Either way, I find it very, very hard to believe, Ed, that you can convince a large group of people to all play along with this story.
That's always been my opinion. How can you get that many people to all just play along?
Exactly. And that's also why a lot of people really hesitate to come forward with their accounts, unlike our listener, Brandon, right? They know that they're going to sound quote unquote crazy to the average person. But these guys speak with so much conviction as to what they saw and generally have this sense of, I know you don't believe me, but here's what happened type of thing. Now, what ended up happening to that metallic object that they end up finding in the forest has never really been explained. There's been some reports that it was taken, loaded up on a truck, and then taken to a secret base in the UK, or that there was one report I read that at a certain point as they tried opening the craft, that it killed one of the people trying to open it, lifted up, shot off. We don't know conclusively what happened, but this is such a cool incident that if anybody wants to look it up, again, it's called the Randall Sham Force incident. And if you can find those recordings, I ended up finding it on a really weird website, but I don't want to link it because I don't know if it might have a virus or something on it. Yeah. But either way, if you get a chance to listen to it, it's very, very chilling. And now I want to talk about the Tic Tac incident. This one is pretty popular.
Did you mean TikTok?
No. This is way before TikTok was even a thought in people's mind. This actually occurred back in 2004. But they call it the Tic Tac incident mainly because the aircraft that was observed was kind of in the shape of the little candy breath mints, a Tic Tac.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Radar operators aboard the USS Princeton, a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser, detected multiple unidentified aerial objects, or UAPs, on their radar systems. And these objects were observed performing very unusual maneuvers and flying very erratically. You have to keep in mind that the USS Princeton is a machine of war. These things are loaded with technology that is so advanced compared to what we have in the public sector because they need to detect everything that could be flying towards them, flying away from them, et cetera, okay? There was a visual confirmation that occurred on November 14th, 2004. There's a name for people that are familiar with the UAP community and alien community. This name's going to sound very familiar to all of you. It was Commander David Fravor and his wingman, okay? They were flying FA-18F Super Hornets from the USS Nimitz, an aircraft carrier, okay? The first ship, the USS Princeton, detected it. Then this Nimitz aircraft carrier scrambled the jets to then go intercept it. That if it was an enemy aircraft, they were going to go blow it out of the sky, right? As they flied towards the area where these things were being detected on radar, Fravor reported seeing with his own eyes a white oval-shaped object resembling a Tic Tac candy, okay? Fravor and his wingman observed the Tic Tac UFO exhibiting extraordinary flight capabilities. The object appeared to perform maneuvers that defied the laws of physics, included very rapid acceleration, instantaneous changes in direction.
And stops.
Yep. And the ability to hover without any visible propulsion.
Right. There were no markings on it. There were no wings. And there was no exhaust plumes.
That was the biggest thing that they observed. That when these pilots would be chasing down an aircraft, like an enemy aircraft or for a training exercise, you see heat signatures emitting from some area of the aircraft as it propels itself through the air.
Right. It was reported that it accelerated so quickly that it seemed to disappear and then reappeared roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute.
Exactly.
That's impossible.
It is impossible. And David Fravor said that if you had a human being in that aircraft, or even any carbon-based life form inside of it, as it made these maneuvers, it would instantly, emulsify the inhabitants.
And I do want to go on record here as saying the Navy did confirm the validity and the authenticity of the video.
Yes, they did. Now, Fravor and his wingman attempted to intercept the object, but it appeared to be aware of the fighter jet's presence and actively avoided them. At one point, Fravor reported that the Tic Tac UFO seemed to mimic his movements before darting away at a high speed, almost like a game of cat and mouse. Video footage of the encounter exists. It was taken from the fighter jet's onboard cameras and was later declassified and released to the public. I'll show it to you right now.
Okay.
It's a very short clip, and there's some audio to it. Sorry if it comes picking up on it, but I'm going to enlarge the video real quick, Ed. It's only about 1 minute, 17 seconds. I want you to tell people what you're looking at before I press play.
Okay. So there in the center of the screen, there's an object that does look like a Tic Tac. It has all of the, what I would assume is navigation, tracking stuff that you might see if you were flying a plane or monitoring something with advanced technology that the U.S. government would have.
So I'm going to go ahead and press play.
Okay.
Just describe what you're seeing.
It's going very fast. It's absolutely just, I can't even describe what that is. It was definitely
Look at that.
changing its position, but it kept going in the same trajectory that it was in. It then turned and moved in another direction very rapidly. It should not be able to make that maneuver right there. According to the screen, it's a 27-degree turn in less than a second. They're tracking it all the way.
One thing that you can read on this video,
Yep.
these are very serious pilots.
These are military personnel, and they're freaked out, and they have no idea what's going on.
They're talking the way you and I would talk if we saw it. They're saying stuff like, you think of military pilots and they're like, object spotted, heading due west at 120 knots.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, dude. Are you seeing this? What the fuck is that thing? That is so crazy. So I know you have your opinions about him, but there's a very famous podcast host, Joe Rogan, who actually had Dave Fravor on his podcast talking about his experience.
I feel so sorry for Dave Fravor.
Man, but Joe Rogan gave him the platform and the space to talk about this experience.
Dave, we'll give you a platform here. We may not have the reach that Joe has, but let me tell you what we will do. We'll provide you free water.
Yeah, free water and a massage if you want.
And a massage. We'll get you hooked up for a massage over at the massage school.
That Tic Tac UFO video was actually my first exposure to UAP videos, and I don't think I could have picked a better one.
Oh no. I mean, that's unexplainable. The authenticity of it is documented. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't deny that it happened.
You can't. And even in that video, right, for people who aren't going to look at it, I highly recommend you do. You can just type in Tic Tac UAP footage on YouTube.
I just typed in Tic Tac UFOs and it came up.
Because it's probably the most well-known example that we have of it. If you see it and understand that this was not some pet project that some art student at USC or Berkeley came up with to be funny, and you understand the gravity that the U.S. military recorded it and then had to release it, there's no way that it could have been faked. And even back then, because some people that are skeptics are like, it could have been a drone. We don't have drones that can move like this. Mm-mm. We definitely don't have drones that can outmaneuver a fighter jet plane.
Well, and also, this was a ship that had advanced radar.
Yes.
That would be able to tell them what it was.
Exactly. And for some people saying, oh, it was probably the shadow or reflection off of the clouds of the ocean.
That was no shadow or reflection of anything.
No. And I think if you are somewhat on the fence about the existence of UAPs, you will change your opinion the moment you watch this video. We could have gone down the rabbit hole of me just showing you video after video, but I really felt like that is the end-all, be-all. You either, after observing this video, believe in UAPs or you don't.
Well, family, that brings us to the end of this episode and to the end of this series, where we took a fascinating journey through the realm of modern aliens. We've delved into the mysteries, theories, and possibilities that continue to captivate our collective imaginations. As we conclude this episode, let's remember that the universe is vast and largely unexplored. The search for alien life is a testament to our enduring curiosity and our desire to understand our place in the cosmos. Whether or not we're alone in the universe remains one of the greatest unanswered questions. But one thing is certain. Our quest for knowledge and understanding will continue to drive us forward into the unknown. The pursuit of knowledge is an endless journey, a constant thirst that drives us to understand the world around us and our place within it. This thirst for knowledge is not just about acquiring information, but also seeking to understand, question, explore, and continually challenge our own assumptions. It's about being open to new ideas, willing to change our minds, and embrace the joy of discovery. It's about realizing that the more we learn, the more we realize how much there is yet to be learned. This continual striving for understanding is what keeps us growing, evolving, and moving forward. It's what makes life a never-ending adventure of learning and discovery. So stay thirsty for knowledge, because every drop of understanding brings us closer to solving the mysteries that remain in our universe. And Brandon, again, thank you for sharing your experience with us. We really appreciate you putting your trust and faith in us, and we hope we've done you proud.
Yes, thank you. So until next episode, stay curious, keep looking up, keep wondering, and keep your mind open to the possibilities. I'm Jacob Garner.
And I'm Ed Bolden Greer.
If you like what you heard, make sure you join us next week as we end our season with some of the greatest content we've presented so far. No, actually, don't listen to me. It's mainly going to be bad dad jokes and crap. But thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
Now, family, you adults have a few chores to do. Go on over to ravensvail.com and see about doing your chores on social media. Follow us on all the social media platforms that we've made available just for you folks. Like, listen, subscribe, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you don't mind, leave us a good rating and a kind comment. You can find the Ravens Vail Cauldron podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you haven't already, just search for the Ravens Vail Cauldron podcast. And again, make sure you hit the follow button to stay up to date with our latest episodes.
Oh, and tell your friends about us, won't you?
So until next time, family, see you soon.
The Ravens Vail Cauldron is a production of Small Raven Media. Today's episode was hosted by Ed Bolden Greer with co-host Jacob A. Garner. Audio engineering and sound design by Nick Devan at Nicky D Sound. Copyrighted 2024, Small Raven Media. All rights reserved.